It can be easy to assume street photography isn't that hard. All you need is a camera and the street to take amazing photographs, right? Well, that's what I thought when I first started out with street photography, but it wasn't until after years of trial and error and over 10,000 street photographs later that I began to really understand how to capture street photographs that stand out. So in this video, I'm going to share 22 lessons that I've learned along the way to help you get the most out of your street photography fast. Lesson 1. While photographing in central London recently, I saw a lady raising her umbrella into the air, which was quite unusual and also made for a nice composition. I raised my camera to my eye and snapped off the shot. Rather than hiding what I was doing, I was open and I smiled, and she found it really funny that I'd taken her picture. I smiled back and she wasn't annoyed at all. Trying to hide what you're doing or being sneaky about it can often draw more attention to you in a negative way than if you're bold and open with your candid street photography. Open and friendly body language and working quickly can really help you with your confidence and also help you capture photos of people up close without them being annoyed or maybe even not noticing you at all. Lesson 2. Recently on a trip to Istanbul, I was out in the morning walking through an old neighbourhood when I saw this lady walking down the street. Usually I'm not really a fan of taking photos of people from behind unless there's something really extraordinary going on to make it extra special. But in this case it was the light that completely transformed the scene into something a little bit more impactful, and the lady's silhouette sort of added to the story. The power of light, harsh sunshine, overcast light, golden hour, blue hour, and even artificial lights at night can really turn boring scenes into magical ones. Light can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. Explore how different kinds of light can really enhance your images to make more impactful frames. Lesson 3. In the morning on a weekend this summer, I went out to run some errands in town and I almost left without a camera, but luckily I remembered to slip my little Olympus XA2 into my pocket. I didn't realise that there was going to be a vintage market on in town, but luckily I had a camera on me to snap a shot that I would have completely missed otherwise. Street photography is a numbers game, and if I didn't have my camera on me pretty much all the time, I'd miss the chance to capture those fleeting moments that can pretty much happen anywhere that we go. Always try having a camera on you. Your main camera, or even just a little point and shoot, will mean that you'll be ready to capture those unexpected moments that can happen around us at any time. Lesson 4. While I was walking along Brighton seafront this summer, I saw some kids playing around a sculpture. As I got a little bit closer, one of the kids tried to squeeze all the way through the sculpture, which made for quite a funny scene that I just had to capture with my camera. I didn't really have time to check my settings or get ready for the shot at all because it happened so fast, and that's usually how great moments happen on the street. But I knew my camera and I knew the lighting, so I'd already dialed in my settings. If I'd had the wrong settings or I wasn't prepared, I would have totally missed the shot. Always be ready for surprises by knowing your gear and setting up your camera for changing conditions. Lesson 5. I learned so much on my recent trip to Istanbul, and you can find out a little bit more about the skills I picked up on that trip in this video, which I'll link up here somewhere. It was on this trip that I really learned the power of layering. By constantly looking to find something interesting to put in the foreground, midground and background, I started to make more complex frames that were more fun to capture, but also more pleasing to look at. Over the years of shooting, I've realised that even trying to incorporate one more element in a frame, such as a reflection, can really add more depth and visual interest to a moment. You don't have to try and make complex frames like Alex Webb all the time, but it's a really fun technique to practice. Layers bring depth to an image. You can experiment by looking beyond the immediate subject and adding more interest to the foreground, midground and background of your frames. Lesson 6. When Paulie B started his excellent walkie-talkie series on YouTube, it completely changed everything for me. I realised I had such a narrow view of what street photography can actually be until I started seeing other photographers go about their work, which is so valuable. I saw things I resonated with and wanted to go out and try myself. Street photography can be a really solitary practice, right? We need to go out there, put in the steps and focus on trying to improve to make better street photographs in the long run. However, if we kind of always go it alone, then we're really missing the chance to learn from others and ultimately have more fun being part of the street photography community. When I started meeting other street photographers to interview them for this channel, I learned so much. It completely opened up my eyes to the different ideas and perspectives on how to go about capturing compelling images. Street photography can be solitary, but growth often comes from collaboration and learning from others. Watch videos, take part in photo walks or workshops, and reach out to other photographers in your local area. Often the best way to learn is by observing how others do it. Lesson 7. I live in what some would consider to be a small, boring town when it comes to doing street photography. And I really hated that fact for so long, and I'd head to a big city as often as I could to give me the best chance of practicing street photography and pass over where I live. But recently, after a conversation with another photographer, I realised that for so long now I've actually still been documenting where I live, and that's a great thing. It might not be the high-octane chaos of a big city, but it's given me the opportunity to practice in a slower place so that when I do go somewhere more buzzing, I'm ready to capture the moments I see. But not only that, it's given me the opportunity to document a place that not really many other street photographers are capturing. So now I kind of look forward to building a big body of work here. Document your local area or community. It's often where originality is found. Lesson 8. This past year I've gone to a load of different events to photograph them, with two of my favourites being Brighton Pride and Notting Hill Carnival. Events are such great places to do street photography, especially for beginners, because generally people really don't mind being photographed, and in fact they expect to be photographed as there's always people out documenting events with their cameras. At the parades, the mix of movement, colour and faces gives an endless opportunity to practice composition and timing. Events are perfect practice grounds for refining technical and observational skills, practicing your street photography and gaining confidence, as well as capturing vibrant moments that are out of the ordinary. Lesson 9. At the start of this year I spent an entire day photographing in the rain, only to end up with dull, uninspired shots. It really was disheartening, and so much of street photography is about failure though. It's a really hard thing to do well, so the only way of getting better at it is to keep going when we have a string of unlucky days, weeks or even months. When I fail at street photography now, I use it as motivation to keep going, as you really never know what's around the next corner. Failure in street photography teaches us resilience, it helps us learn from our mistakes, and it shapes our growth. Lesson 10. In my early street photography days, when I really became interested in photographing people up close, I centred every subject in the frame. Every exciting moment or gesture I saw would go bang right in the centre of the image. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that, and actually a strong character or moment in the centre of the frame can make a really powerful photo, but over time I decided I wanted to seek more variety in my compositions. One day I forced myself to really move my body a bit more, be less rigid and tilt the camera with a focus to not putting the main event right in the centre of the frame. The results led to more dynamic images with more creative compositions and really opened my eyes to all the possibilities of how you can frame a scene or a moment. Challenge yourself to fill the frame creatively and don't always default to putting the main event in the centre of your composition. Lesson 11. All the time in street photography we need to decide where to walk. Some of us have a route that we always follow and others will go somewhere different each time they're out with their camera. But either way, trusting your instincts is so powerful, especially the more time you spend out on the street. Recently, while in Trafalgar Square in London, I just had the feeling that something was going to happen, so I kept my eyes open and my camera ready. And sure enough, right in front of me, a kid jumped up onto a pole and then flew off into their father's arms, making for a lovely little moment to capture. Trust your instincts, they often guide you to compelling moments. Lesson 12. While I was in Paris, I saw this sign near where I was staying and thought that could really make for the basis of an interesting photograph. I just needed a subject to interact with it in some way. Finally, on the last day of the trip, a man with a cigarette stood in just the right place as I was walking past. The colours on the textures from the glass as well as the human element made for an abstract but visually pleasing photograph that I really like. Just adding in a bit of texture and colour from things such as window displays, reflections and objects on the street can take a boring scene and elevate it into something a little bit more beautiful. Complexity and abstraction adds intrigue, and that can often make for more compelling frames. Lesson 13. While I was walking through the crowds at an event, I heard someone wolf whistle behind me, so I swung around and saw this couple having a passionate kiss. The sound led me to the moment and I captured it with my camera. If I had just had music and headphones in my ears, or I wasn't really paying attention to the sounds and rhythm of the street, then I would have completely missed that moment. Let your senses guide your photography. Listen to the environment and use the sounds to help guide you to interesting moments, and also be more emotionally connected with your environment too. Lesson 14. The boundaries of street photography are pretty much limitless, and that's what makes it such a fun genre of photography. But the only way to discover your style and the kind of work that you're interested in is to look at other photographers' work and then try out new ideas on the street. I have a small photo book collection, and the more books that I pick up, the more ways of looking I'm exposed to, and then the more things I want to go out and try for myself. The more I experimented, the more I found a style or themes that resonate with me, which then kind of gave me a direction with what kind of street photography that I wanted to explore. Experimentation and trying new things leads to growth and innovation. Lesson 15. I'm a massive football fan, and during the Euros while I was out in the fan zone watching the game, I of course had my camera. England won the game and it was a huge release of emotion and the whole crowd erupted, and it was just an amazing atmosphere to be in. That's when I noticed this couple embracing, about to have a kiss. Pure love and joy on their faces, surrounded by the crowd all celebrating in their own way. Emotion is one of the main things I look out for in my street photography, as I'm quite an emotional person and the emotions of others really resonate with me. But not only that, I personally think that photos filled with emotion are really exciting to look at. Emotion makes photos resonate with viewers, and often that makes for powerful images. Lesson 16. Early on in my street photography journey, I'd take a lot of photographs of people from behind. Now there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that, and you can definitely make engaging photos from behind. But if we want to capture emotion, like I mentioned in the last lesson, then we really need to capture people's faces, as that's really where we can see or feel the emotion from someone. While you can definitely capture images with a good story of people from behind, focusing on capturing faces and eyes really helps the viewer connect with an image that documents people on the street. Lesson 17. A few months ago I saw this awesome moment. 3 couples were all embracing at the same time. It was a scene full of emotion and the composition was just perfect. As I went to press the shutter, I realised I was out of film and I completely missed the moment. And I was gutted, to be honest, and it put me in a bad mood for the rest of the day. But that is the nature of street photography. Sometimes you miss shots by accident, by your own fault, or just because the moment went by too fast. If you miss a shot, then just don't worry about it. There's always going to be another moment to capture. Missed shots are part of the process. Just let them go. Lesson 18. Truly weird and wonderful moments happen a lot more out in public than you might think, but being about to see and capture them requires being out as much as possible and going out time after time after time. After months of shooting sporadically, I realised the more time I spent out on the streets, the better my odds were of capturing something exceptional. So I actually now schedule street photography time into my week to force myself to go out even when I could just stay in bed or watch TV. Street photography is a numbers game, so shoot as often as you can. The more you shoot, the better your chances are of capturing something special. Lesson 19. I switched to film this year mainly because I love the colour and texture of film, but also the process of it. I said to myself there's no way I'd ever shoot black and white because for me the world is all about colour and emotion and they both go hand in hand. But when autumn rolled around and the daylight hours turned grey and short, I switched to black and white to try it out and it actually opened up a whole new way of shooting for me. I'm still looking for emotion, but now rather than colour, I'm looking for contrast, composition, story and timelessness. Both colour and monochrome offer unique storytelling opportunities, so if you're used to one, try the other. You never know how that might change your street photography for the better. Lesson 20. Earlier this year, the forecast was for rain all day and I almost didn't go out and shoot, but in the end I forced myself and I'm so glad that I did. Photographing in the rain gave me the opportunity to capture people with umbrellas and the slick surfaces gave nice reflections and colour. It even rained so hard that it forced me inside to photograph a museum, which I don't usually do, and I got a shot there that I really like. Don't just be a fair weather photographer. Bad weather gives you the opportunity to add mood and variety to your work. Lesson 21. For quite a long time I used to go out with my camera regularly without really having any idea of what it was that I was looking for, which could be quite frustrating. Over time though, I realised that I was quite drawn to photographing people's hands, and each time I went out, I tried to get one shot of hands in a different way each time, leading me to create a sort of loose project. I then looked through old photographs and noticed I seemed to be drawn to capturing eyes as well, and this became another little project that I have in the back of my mind each time I go out to shoot. Having a project provides purpose, momentum, and may also lead to bigger things like a zine or a book down the line. Lesson 22. For me, the joy of street photography really comes from the act of observing, exploring and shooting, not just the results. The more I embraced the process, the better my photos became and the more fun I had going out doing it. Just really enjoy the journey of going out, observing and capturing what captures your eye on the street, the results will follow. Perhaps the most important lesson on this list for me was to discover how powerful watching other street photographers' work can be in developing my own skills. So don't miss this video next where we follow along with an incredible street photographer for a day of exciting photography. I'd really love to know which lesson resonated the most with you, so let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.